Could you tell me who you are?
Who am I? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Static Shock from his own show, Cyborg from Teen Titans, and Yoruichi Shihouin are fantastic, well-written characters that have their own ups and downs, flaws, and general personalities that on one level or another I can relate to. As a kid, they were just people that I personally attached myself to and wanted to be more like on a subconscious level. You could easily see that as, they look like me, thus I gravitated towards them, but I never quite felt the same for the other black characters like Number 5 from Kids Next Door, Gerald from Hey Arnold, or anyone from the Proud Family. For each one of you out there that don't know any of these characters, I'm going to sprout 3 gray hairs. And while I know for a fact that my attachment to these characters may spawn from the fact that they're black, like me, they're all more than that, being a representation that hit close enough to home in a sea of characters that are out there. The fact that they do share ethnicity with me doesn't immediately link me to them, but they do make it easier for me to identify with them on one level or another. I've gone from pretending I'm a demon in a park like Inuyasha to wanting to throw roses around like Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho. 2 characters that couldn't be further from who I am as a person, but they resonated with me based on appeal and style. Similarly, I felt an unreasonable amount of respect and reverence from John from the Justice League, seeing a father figure in him. Same with Etika, may he rest in peace. Normally he's a person that I'd probably never watch, but I guess my pull from his content goes even further beyond than just being a fan of Nintendo. And whoever you are, I'm sure you feel the same way about other characters and personalities that some others personally wouldn't understand. Which is exactly why I didn't really understand the identity politics discourse. Something I wish I could say is true. But in actuality, back in the early 2016s, I've fallen into that trap, believing that everything was getting quote-unquote too political. I'd watch as YouTubers like LeafyIsHere unfairly chastise other creators on caring about their identity and representation, and instead causing them to be isolated and attacked for those beliefs. And holy shit, looking back made things so freaking hard to see why I would endorse things like this.
After months of continuously receiving the same amount of harassment, the hate felt inescapable. Online harassment is so different from other types of harassment because I was being hated on by literally millions of anonymous people. I was made to feel like the whole world was against me, or at least a very large number of people hated me and wanted to cause me harm. And I had no idea who they were. I wasn't ever attacked. But at the same time, I lived several years of my life feeling like I could never let my guard down.
I never went back to attack anyone back then, but just knowing that I was not only complicit, but entertained by the public character assassinations and cruelty, it makes me think that the Salem witch trials weren't nearly as chastised back in those days as I thought they were. Guess I'm not immune to propaganda though, huh? So anyway, I mostly try to make a point to not be too political on this YouTube channel, especially after unlisting what is quite possibly my most cancelable thing I've ever made. The police and all this were being far more of a nuisance to the black population. Even groups like the KKK were forming in order to purge blacks from society. Jesus Christ, I really did do the whisper talk thing. But there came a point recently where I realized that what I really meant was that I didn't want to talk about anything that felt too divisive. I am a people pleaser by nature, after all. But I feel like identity politics is just one of those nuanced topics that has an apex center that's hardly looked at by its opposers. Everyone has representation in media. It's why some characters are beloved and are our favorites. And while I might not agree, I can at least understand the background behind the opposite ideology, that there doesn't need to be identity politics in every movie and video game right now. Everywhere you go, there's people out there that you don't understand or interact with on a daily basis, infiltrating the solace that you have in media. Stories that should focus on what the narrative is about and not injecting something that you don't care about. All you want to do is sit down and watch a dude kill another dude with a katana and enjoy it without the media pandering to something that doesn't really appeal to you.
I directly relate to all of this. This speaks to me. And it didn't require some quota that some activists tried to inject that would only distract from the story, preventing it from being the best scene it can be.
But that's a perspective caked with layers of looking for something. It's 100% okay to say that something sucks because it was forced to be a certain way. I mean, I'm not going to get myself canceled for the things that I think do suck for it. But it is true that a lot of Hollywood media is trying its best to pander to what we believe we want as consumers. They often fail miserably in the process because that's their main focus. But we've known mega corporations suck when they try to pander to the lowest common denominator, rather than creating service from passion. What I don't entirely understand is seeking out anything that's too different and disliking it for it. Did you know there's an entire Google Doc dedicated to finding, quote, woke games? And there's an audience of people following and updating this on a daily basis? I feel like if you have to ask, you're missing a crucial step in critical thinking. Can you just imagine finding a reason to dislike something because it does one small thing that doesn't politically agree with your team's ideologies? Like, dude, Hollow Knight is a game about bugs beating the shit out of other bugs. I'm fairly certain Team Cherry doesn't want your son to take HRT and go to drag team library readings. I think that sentiment of avoiding things that are different generally stems from being content with the representations that you tend to have in the first place. I've stated before that there are a plethora of characters that I could latch myself onto, including Chris from Everybody Hates Chris, a black kid that moves to a white school. I was the token black kid in a lot of friend groups and was constantly taking racial jabs at for the sake of comedy. But we're not going to talk about that today, though. I myself get representation for my needs quite a bit, even before the media went, quote, woke. But there's a transformative effect that comes from different backgrounds and ideals, especially for things that don't align with who you are as a person. Trans representation speaks to me in ways that other forms of media just never could. Like seeing Alika from Hunter x Hunter as a trans representation of a girl, while her family sees her as something completely different, not only adds to the story, but actively enhances their disconnect. Alika is just a normal girl who happens to be cursed with the ability to murder an entire lineage of people in a matter of seconds. But that doesn't take away from the fact that they just want to live a normal and happy life. Her family, however, sees her as a dangerous tool to be kept control of. To them, they don't know the first thing about their child and sibling, using her for their own means and tend to consider her a boy despite her protests to the contrary. But Killua cares enough to get to know them and see beyond the creature that is wrought with destruction and potential that she is. Something that I'm sure that many can relate to, as many family members treat their sons and daughters as though they're tools rather than who they are. The stories like that are littered around the media landscape. Cyborg's a black teen that is limited by his internal robotic components, but breaks free from those restraints to do better as a whole, not letting what he was programmed to be hold him back. He's not just what his background forged him into, but a person with abilities and talents to push himself rather than stagnate. Mulan isn't just a woman. She's a soldier that works harder than everyone around them, not just to help her, but to help them all achieve their goal of being great soldiers. It's not only the fact that she's a woman that makes her stronger than the others, but the fact that her grit and determination goes beyond the camp's attempts, something that inspires them to give it their all as well. I feel like a lot of this political turmoil is just avoidable with a little empathy and understanding. It's the reason why I'm a centrist at heart.
I say we meet in the middle. Some people get cool, some people don't. No, yeah, that's fair. No. How is that any different from what he said? That doesn't make any sense. I mean in the middle, fam.
I strongly believe that when you dedicate your ideology towards something, anything that contradicts that doesn't become a gap in logic, but instead immediately triggers a defense that fills the void. There are things on both sides that I can understand and disagree with separately. There are so many nuanced topics out there that I feel like are split unfairly into black and white, when there's clearly more nuance that needs to be presented. And I'm not just trying to say that everything has a nuance, obviously. There's plenty of things that I feel incredibly strongly about that I'd likely never compromise without a significant paradigm shift in understanding, one of which being abortion. I just think it's better to abort half the baby. Monte Sensei, the YouTuber that I shown earlier, isn't some right-wing conspiracist that wants to eliminate everyone who doesn't agree with him or stick to his morality. And I'll even give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he probably doesn't mind the identities of people that don't resonate with him in the world. He's got a great taste in media, as well as killer musical tracks on his Spotify. And I'm sure most people who dislike the quote, woke mob care more about preserving their mindset rather than disliking the opposition. And the fact that the most beloved franchises aren't doing as well as they used to by thinking they know what their audience wants isn't helping much. But media itself is representation through thought and action. And so long as someone resonates with something, it will creatively exist in one way or another. I think the world should be allowed to express itself, regardless of how different they might be.
Thank you.
Yeah, within reason! YouTube wouldn't exist if someone else didn't feel that way as well. Hell, you might not even exist. I think at the end of the day, media is about connection. People resonate with characters and stories in ways that go beyond surface level identity. But that doesn't mean identity doesn't play a role. The more stories we tell, the more doors we open for people to find themselves in the media that they enjoy. And that's something worth celebrating at the very least. Either way, thanks for making it all the way to the end, and I hope you take care of yourself. I'll see you tomorrow.